Let's talk about Iraq right now. There's word as we speak right now of what Bush administration officials are now calling an agreement between the U.S. and the Iraqi government for a, quote, general time horizon for the withdrawal of U.S. forces from Iraq. Now that's an ambiguous phrase, but it sounds like something you've opposed for a long time, which would be a deadline or a timetable for withdrawal of U.S. troops.
I think you will find, Wolf, that in anything that we talk about with the Iraqis and anything that is agreed, that we and the Iraqis are going to want to be sensitive to the conditions. We certainly have views about how well the Iraqis are starting to do. They are taking over security responsibility in the provinces. The day is coming when American forces will step back more and more from combat roles. The day is coming when we will be doing more in the way of training and less in the way of fighting. Those goals are being achieved now as we speak. And so it's not at all unusual to start to think that there is a horizon out there in the not too distant future in which the roles and responsibilities of the U.S. forces are going to change dramatically and those of the Iraqi forces are going to become dominant.
Is that a euphemism for a timeline for withdrawal of U.S. forces from Iraq?
I think that you will find that both the United States and Iraq want to be very attentive to what is actually going on the ground. And to the degree that you can turn over provinces to the Iraqis because they are stronger, because their enemies are weaker, because political and economic activities are taking hold, of course you will want to do that. And there is no problem in having an aspirational, if you will, time horizon for doing that.
The Washington Post reported the other day that it was now unlikely that you'd be able to negotiate what's called a status of forces agreement with the Iraqis before your administration ends, and that would probably be left to the next administration. Are they right?
Well, we will find a way with the Iraqis to have a basis for our forces to continue to do what they need to do for Iraq. Iraq wants that as well. Status of forces agreement may be a complicated arrangement to make. One of the things that's happening is that the Iraqis want to do more, and they're asserting their sovereignty, and we're trying to be sensitive to their sovereignty.
They say they want a timeline.
They have just said that what we want is a kind of aspirational time horizon which allows us to look out into the future and say, here's what we expect in terms of American forces and their roles and responsibilities and those of...
But if they say the United States should leave, what would the U.S. do?
Well, we're there at the invitation of the Iraqi government. But I think you will find that the Iraqis recognize that they need and want a partner. What we have to recognize is that we have achieved an enormous amount over the last years, really since the surge, a lot. Violence is down. The Iraqi political system is beginning to function. You have Sunni leaders coming back into the government. And I think we would be foolish, and they would be foolish, to put at risk those gains by too rapid a decline in the American forces there. But we can look at the situation, we can have an aspirational time horizon, we can look at the changing roles and responsibilities of Iraqis and Americans. Those are all perfectly logical things to do.
Here's what John McCain said back on May 30th in Milwaukee.
I believed for 4 years nearly that the strategy that was employed was wrong, and I fought against it. It was a flawed and failed strategy, and I fought against it.
Now, you've been involved in the strategy from day one as the National Security Advisor, now the Secretary of State. Is he right that for 4 years there was a failed strategy in Iraq?
I believe, Wolf, that we were making progress in Iraq until really 2006 when conditions changed, and they changed a lot. They changed as a result of a new strategy by the then leader of al-Qaeda in Iraq, Zarqawi, who was determined to set Iraqis against Iraqis in civil conflict. And frankly, with the bombing of the Golden Mosque, he succeeded. And it is true that the strategy that we were pursuing was not going to improve the situation in Iraq had we stayed with it. And that's why the President ordered a review of that. That's why the President ordered an increase in American forces. That's why we went to a more classical counterinsurgency strategy. It's why we had a civilian surge, including increasing the number of provincial reconstruction teams. Yes, we did make a change in strategy at the end of 2006, the beginning of 2007, because, as the President said, it wasn't working. Now, when you know something isn't working, when you know conditions have changed, of course you need to make an adjustment. But the President made that adjustment.
Let's talk about Afghanistan and Pakistan right now. The new government in Pakistan, are they doing everything you want to do to go after the Taliban and Al-Qaeda in those tribal areas along the border with Afghanistan?
Look, it's very clear that more has to be done to stabilize that border between Afghanistan and Pakistan. More has to be done.
So they're not doing it?
More has to be done.
You've conveyed that because the United States provides a lot of aid.
More has to be done. But more has to be done not just because of Afghanistan security, not just because of concerns about threats to American interest, but because of threats to Pakistan. We are talking about a place in which militants have killed Benazir Bhutto. They've carried out attacks near the Red Mosque. They've carried out attacks on Pakistani soldiers. And so Pakistan has a very strong interest and a very strong stake in dealing with the places that the militants are able to gather and train and carry out their activities.
Here's what Senator Obama said on Tuesday about this issue.
I will make the fight against Al-Qaeda and the Taliban the top priority that it should be. This is a war we have to win. I will send at least 2 additional combat brigades to Afghanistan and use this commitment to seek greater contributions with fewer restrictions from our NATO allies.
Is he right?
Well, first of all, I'm not going to comment on what Senator Obama says. Let me just comment. Well, let me talk about the substance. The circumstance is, it's clear that we do need better action on the border between Pakistan and Afghanistan. It is also the case that the Taliban has come back somewhat stronger, but the Taliban is actually being defeated when they come back as military organizations. The problem is that they've taken to acts of terrorism which terrorize the population and make it difficult for the government to extend its writ out into the more remote parts of the country. So it's a combination of military strategy, reconstruction and development, better governance in these areas that will help to improve the situation in Afghanistan, and that's the strategy that we are pursuing. In terms of restrictions on NATO forces, those have been dropping more and more, but I will tell you, it's going to be very difficult for some of our NATO forces, our NATO allies, to drop restrictions. They also have parliamentary systems. They also have publics that have views about Afghanistan. We've worked on this issue very hard. Some have dropped caveats. I suspect that others will not.
Last November, the President met with the leaders of Israel, the Palestinians, and among others, and he said this.
We agree to engage in vigorous, ongoing, and continuous negotiations and shall make every effort to conclude an agreement before the end of 2008.
Now, flash forward to now. We're getting close to the end of 2008.
Well, not that close. We're about halfway there.
Well, do you believe that this is still doable?
I think it is still doable. We're about halfway there. The parties are negotiating, and they're negotiating seriously. I've had a series of bilateral discussions with them. The Palestinians were just here this week. I also am having a series of trilateral discussions with them. They are doing this in a way that they don't go to the cameras every day and say what has or has not been agreed. I think that's really appropriate because these are very delicate issues. And let's look at where we are. A year ago, we had no process. And the peace process is now underway. They're talking about the most delicate issues. And I think they still have a chance to get an agreement. It won't be easy. There's no guarantee because, to be frank, if this had been easy, somebody would have solved it a long time ago. And as close as people have supposedly come, they've never gotten it across the finish line. So we will keep working. I think they've got a chance, but these are really hard issues.
Good luck to you on that one. If you achieve that, that would be quite a little legacy for yourself.
Well, I'll tell you, I won't achieve it, and it won't have anything to do with my legacy.
Well, you would certainly help.
I'll tell you, the achievement will be Palestinian and Israeli leaders who are able to take difficult choices And the real benefit will be to the Palestinians and the Israelis.